What's up, everyone? Today is fight day, and it is kind of crazy that I'm making this video today, but it is UFC 311. I wanted to kind of speak on what my predictions are, what are the forecasts for this year. Before the card happened, I will try and get everything done before um, the card goes live here at 5 p.m. Central Time. So that is the plan. We'll see. We're maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, let's say 5 hours from the main card. So I have a little bit of time, and I wanted to get these predictions, kind of my take on what I think is going to happen today, this evening. So it's really exciting. A lot has been happening within the whole UFC realm of fighters leaving or fighters pulling out of the fight and things like that. So um, yep, today's the day. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really looking forward to how things will change because of this evening. I think that'll be very exciting. It is taking place in the Intuit Dome in Inglewood, so that's pretty crazy in of itself, just being so close to those wildfires. It is Saturday, January 18th, 2025, and those wildfires have been a big deal up there in Los Angeles, so it's kind of crazy that that's going on in that vicinity just to start there. But if we had to, start with the card from the prelims all the way through the main card, I think it's a great stack of fights, great fighters, and very exciting fights. And I think hopefully we get a lot of stoppages, and that's kind of what I think they built, and that's kind of what they kind of were shooting for when they created this card. So that's really exciting, and kind of the main purpose of doing this is starting with these fights is you're getting a lot of action in the bantamweight, lightweight division, a little bit in the heavyweight, because as you know, with the whole Jones and Aspinall, it's kind of needs some movement there, kind of need guys climbing up. So it's a really good card, and a little bit of middleweight. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a great way to start the year. If we had to kind of jump in straight to the early prelims, you got Ailin Perez, Carol Rosa, a great matchup. Ricky Turcios and Bernardo Sopaj. So there's fights in the early prelims that not necessarily will impact the top 15 rankings, but are very important to those divisions. Now, if we had to jump straight into what would be the biggest fight in the prelims, I think without a doubt is Peyton Talbot and Raoni Barcelos. I think that card, I think the prelims as a whole, like I said, it was very well rounded. But I think everyone has their eyes on Peyton right now, right? Peyton seems to be somebody who everyone's talking about in 135. I think everyone wants to see him succeed and jump into the rankings and potentially, be a title contender. I think just because he's kind of like an odd figure and kind of like an oddball within the whole MMA community. He's on a nine fight win streak, 7 by knockout, and 1 by submission. So I would think that's great numbers. To get into those rankings and to get into those big name fights. So I'm curious to see how he'll do tonight. Raoni Barcelos is no easy task, just like anyone else in the UFC. So if he can prove, what everyone is kind of rooting for him to be, or can live up to that better yet, then I think it'd be very exciting to see where he ends up. If I had to do a quick recap of who I want to win or who I think will win these fights, I will jump straight into that. Tagir Ulanbekov and Clayton Carpenter. I am going to go Clayton Carpenter. I think he will win. I go Bernardo Sopaj, Ricky Turcios. I go Ricky Turcios. Biased one on there. I think Ricky can pull it off. Mion Gafurov versus Rion Nakamura. I go Muin Gafurov. Ailin Perez, Carol Rosa. Grant Dawson, Diego Ferreira. Grant Dawson. Billy Ilankana and Bogdan Guskov. Bogdan, just based off what I'm seeing here, I think Bogdan can't lose, right? Can't lose to an unranked fighter when you're already in the top 15 rankings. So must win for Bogdan. I think he'll win. I think he'll continue. Zachary Reese, Asamat Bekov, Zachary Reese, Payne Talbot, and Raoni Barcelos. I am rooting for Payne Talbot, so I'll have to stick with Payne Talbot. If he can keep this train going, I think he can he can make it to the top and potentially a title contention. So jumping straight into the main card, we got Kevin Holland and Rainer de Ridder. Now, Kevin Holland has been in the UFC for some time now and has had wins, has had losses. With him, I think it's just a matter of turning it up a gear and getting into that next level, and accumulating some sort of win streak to eventually get into title contention. Do I think it can happen? Yes. Is it kind of, do I know? Do I think that that's kind of where his mind is at? Not necessarily. I think from what I've seen in his interviews and things like that, he's not too concerned about the belt. He's not too, let's say, infatuated with the idea of being the belt holder or the champion, right? So I think he's enjoying the ride, which I also like. I think that's a very great aspect in a fighter, and kind of seeing the silver lining in being in the UFC. And I think he's one of those guys where he just likes being in the mix and just getting down to it. So I'm rooting for Kevin Holland in this fight. I hope he wins, right? But I don't know if it's, if his plan is to continue for title contention. So I'd say he wins, just based off experience. Rainer de Ridder, I believe he's only had one fight in the UFC at this time. I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, just one fight. So 4 wins by knockout, 12 by submission, 10 first-round finishes. I think, those are good numbers, right? But only one fight in the UFC. To me, the UFC is a different ballgame, and that's a whole nother conversation. If he can get past Kevin Holland, if Rainer de Ridder can get past Kevin Holland, I think that propels him into up in that ranking level, top 25, top whatever that top 20. Because I believe Kevin Holland's not too far off. At least he shouldn't be. But Rainer de Ridder propels him if he wins, obviously. So obviously with all these fights, if you win, it's the best case scenario. But for Kevin Holland especially, if he wins, it's kind of hard to say if he's going to want to go straight to title contention. Rainer de Ridder, you could think, that's his goal. Kevin Holland, I just think that's a pretty interesting way to go about things, and I think it's a good way too. So there's that. Now this one, now jumping into the heavyweight bout with Jailton Almeida and Sergey Spivac. This is a weird one because they're in the top 10 of the heavyweight division, and with the whole Aspinall and John Jones, this is a big bout for me. I think this is a very important one when you talk about the heavyweight division. Right now, the big news is will John Jones fight Aspinall, or John Jones wants $30 million to fight Aspinall, or there's a lot of speculation going on what's going to happen in the heavyweight, and there's a lot of uncertainty on who will fight who. So with Jailton Almeida and Sergey Spivac fighting each other, I think this could potentially get that division moving. Right now, I wouldn't say that the heavyweight division has always been crazy active. It would be nice, this day and age, that the heavyweight was more active. Whatever the case may be, that's just not the way that it works out. But for this fight, for Jailton and Sergey, I would want Jailton to win, right? Sergey has lost to Tom Aspinall, so you have that aspect. Now, if Sergey wins, I think he's still in a great position, maybe to fight Cyril Gane or somebody to get into that number 1 contender. If I had to, tap into a little bit of the heavyweight division, I'd say that there's no real reason to wait on John Jones for Tom Aspinall. I don't think it's a fight that's going to happen. John Jones has said that, he has no interest in holding on to the belt. You can, essentially, UFC, you can take the belt back. Now, whether that's for promotional reasons or whatever the case may be, I do generally think that he doesn't think. I do generally feel like he doesn't think that that division is where he belongs, or if he belongs, or if he thinks holding that belt is what's what he's going for. So if I had to pick, I go Jailton Almeida in winning. I think he can get past Sergey. And I also think it's the best thing for the division, um, even though I think it wouldn't be the worst thing if Sergey won. So that's my take on that one. Now going to the light heavyweight bout, and this is what I was talking about. There's almost, I believe, essentially a fight in every division, which is nice. You like to see that. I guess that even scheduling of fights, because we went from middleweight to heavyweight. Now we're going to lightweight, so that's always nice to see. A stack card with a bunch of different fighters is great. We got Yuri Procházka versus Jamal Hill. This is gonna be an interesting fight. I think you got Yuri Procházka, really energized and really pumped into showing that he is still a champion, right? He really wants to get back in there and potentially fight Alex Pereira. So I think he's gonna fight really hard, and I think he's gonna give Jamal too much of a fight. And I do think Yuri gets past Jamal, but I don't think it's easy. From personal experience, I think the injury that Jamal Hill had, it's a hard injury. To recover from. I just don't think Jamal has had enough time to recover. I know he fought Pereira on that injury, and I know, the injury hasn't sparked anything and hasn't, played hasn't been a factor in any of his outcomes, of the fight outcomes, but I just don't think there's an injury you come back from that easily. And I think Procházka has been training. He is healthy, and he is determined, and I just don't see how you beat a Yuri like that. Not to say Jamal doesn't have a chance, but if I had to go for that fight, I think we go Yuri, and he wins. Case could be made. Does he fight Alex Pereira again? Jumping straight into the bantamweight, right? Merab Dvalishvili and Umar Nurmagomedov. Now this fight is a crazy fight. It's a fight we've been waiting for a while now. Fight that a lot of folks have been saying, it's gonna come, just gotta wait, and we're here. We got in the bantamweight realm, you have a lot of fighters, a lot of active fighters right now at the moment. When you talk about bantamweight, there is a lot of active activity going on there, and that's really exciting. You got fighters, they essentially got pushed out. Now fighters that are coming up. So this is a really exciting bout, a really good bout for the division. And Merab is no easy task, and now Merab as a champion, the year that he had last year, I don't think it's going to be an easy fight for Umar, for anyone for that matter. But there's that aspect of, Merab is champion, and he's champion for a reason. If we had to go into the rankings a little bit of the bantamweight, the top 5 is crazy. Right now they have Davison Figueiredo at 5, Corey Sandhagen as 4, Peter Yan as 3, Umar as 2, and Sean O'Malley as 1. When you just talk about those 5 fighters there, you can make many fights that'll intrigue the UFC universe. That's just the top 5. Now, if we had to start from the top 10, you got Mario Bautista, Rob Font, Song Yadong, Henry Cejudo, and Marlon Vera. Another stack right there. So we already have Song Yadong versus Henry Cejudo, so that's a crazy fight. I'm curious to see how Henry will go, do that. That's for later. But right now, you can see how this win between Merab and Umar, how this fight between Merab and Umar is a crazy bout, as it'll change many things, right? Because if Merab wins, he's going on his title defense tour, where he'll start having to fight these guys one by one. I'm sure Sean O'Malley will come back for his rematch, and I'm sure Umar will have to fight someone else, and then you got Peter Yan, just waiting, Corey, and then Davison. So it's a crazy time to be in the bantamweight division right now. And when you talk about this bout, when you talk about tonight for UFC 311, it's a crazy fight. So I think for this bout, it's just a matter of, okay, who's gonna win, and then what can we do with it. And I know the UFC fans will be happy. So I think, but without further ado, if I had to pick a winner for this one, I do go Merab. I think Merab is too much to deal with. I think, I do think if Umar probably had the grappling base that, Khabib and Islam had, I think he has a better chance rather than the Muay Thai. I think the Muay Thai is great, and nothing to do with the Muay Thai, but I just think that Merab is already a great grappler. And if you're not a grappling, uh, essentially a grappling master from the beginning, then it's gonna, you're gonna be in for a tough ride. And I just say that because Sean O'Malley did somewhat grapple with him, but it was a tough fight. And then you look back at the Henry Cejudo and Merab Dvalishvili fight. Merab was essentially, doing whatever he wanted with Henry. So there's, picked him up, took him across the octagon. So yeah, I do think Merab wins. I do think his grappling and striking will be too much for Umar. Now, I could be wrong, right? Umar could have scaled his skills incrementally and, essentially just surpassed Merab. But we're going to find out tonight, so that's the great thing about this. We'll find out tonight, see what exactly Umar has, improved on, or what exactly Umar has, learned throughout this time, right? He has fought other fighters. He has fought in the UFC, so it will be exciting, right? And, Merab saying that, he hasn't proven that Umar hasn't proven himself fighting top contenders. There is truth to that, and kind of that spotlight and being at that main event, being the main event, all eyes on you, kind of deal. So it'll be interesting seeing Umar in that realm, in that kind of area. So we'll see how he deals with it. I think he'll do fine. I just think that Umar will be too much. I think Umar already is, in a sense, kind of like a seasoned UFC vet, right? Where you got Umar kind of working his way there. Do I think Umar can be champion? Of course, I think Umar can eventually become champion. For one reason or another, I do think Merab will defend it, though. I don't think anyone beats the Merab that we got right now. So I'm hoping Merab wins. I'm really kind of rooting for him. I like to see him for the best thing for the UFC. Like I said, I do kind of want him on that title defense tour. I kind of want him to go on that. I like seeing him, teamed up with Longo and Aljamain. I do like all that dynamic. So curious to see how that goes. I'm really excited for that fight in particular. I think it's going to be a really high pace, really technical fight, really good one for everyone. So I say tune into that fight. If you can't watch any fight, if you can only watch one fight, I do say you watch the Merab and Umar. And then another thing we have there is Khabib at Umar's corner. We haven't seen Khabib in some time, so that's an exciting aspect to this fight as well. So definitely catch that. I think that'd be a really great fight. For the main event, right? For the main event, for what we've been all waiting for and didn't get, right? We were supposed to get a Makhachev Sarukian 2, and that's no longer the case. As of 24 hours ago, we got the news, right, that Sarukian was out. So that in of itself is a crazy thing. And it just goes to show kind of why I really like this sport, why I really like this realm. Like, things just change, right? When you expect a Super Bowl, you expect to see those two teams there, and you'll see these two teams there. It's not like one team's going to pull out and then we're going to have another substitute team. No, not in the UFC universe. That's not how it works, right? Sorry, not in the NFL. Something like that in the NFL, that doesn't happen, right? But in the UFC, it does happen. Quick changes, quick replacements, essentially substitutes for title bouts. That happens in this MMA world, which is crazy. And I think that's what I like the most about it. Yesterday morning, I was looking forward. I was keeping up to date with all the UFC embedded, all their vlogs that they put out, and kind of what everyone was saying. Everyone's predictions, right? And I was watching the weigh-in show, and they were talking about Islam made weight, Umar made weight, Merab made weight. And they're like, oh yeah, Sarukian takes a little bit of time to weigh in, but he'll weigh in for sure. And before you know it, within the weigh-in show, you have Dana White saying who's going to be the replacement, and I didn't catch it. I didn't catch that till after I had already seen a post, and I had seen a post and said, Sarukian out. So I knew he was out. They hadn't said who the replacement was, so then I knew that it could be anyone, but it would most likely be someone within the card, and sure enough, it was Renato Moicano. So that was awesome, getting to see. If you know anything about Renato Moicano, like, he's a crazy figure in the UFC, a crazy character as well, and a very knowledgeable guy. If you've seen any of his interviews or any of his appearances on any MMA shows, it's quite a watch. I highly recommend you watch him talk about economics or whatever the case may be, politics. It's kind of an interesting take that he has, not being from United States, being from Brazil. So he's a really cool guy, and getting to see him, kind of grow within the last year, right? Stacking up those wins, and then his most notable recent win against BSD, Benoit Saint Denis. It's nice seeing him get this shot, and then kind of when I saw the news that Sarukian was out, I was like, there's no way Renato's not saying, let me get in there, let me save the card, essentially. So to recap again, yes, the lightweight title bout will be Islam Makhachev versus Renato Moicano, no longer Islam versus Sarukian. So that in itself, before I get into that, I think the lightweight, talking about the changes between each division and how things can change within the lightweight division, is kind of crazy at the moment, because you got a lot of fighters there with big names and kind of at a stagnant, no real movement. And if I had to say, like, kind of now with Charles, last year, November, I was thinking Charles definitely fighting the winner of Islam and Arman, but now with Arman pulling out, Renato moving in, it kind of throws things off. So it kind of changes things for the lightweight division for a better way. You get more exciting fights. You get fights that you wouldn't have normally gotten if Arman stayed in there, right? So this kind of Arman getting out and not being able to fight has kind of helped the division in a way a little bit, because I actually did have back in November, I did have Renato fighting the likes of, I had Renato fighting like a Chandler or something like that, or I had Renato fighting, somebody else within the top 15. But now this changes things for him, and it also changes things for the rest of the division, which is, I think, pretty exciting. If I had to, kind of touch on that a little bit, last year, you were thinking, oh, maybe the Conor McGregor and Chandler fight will happen in 2025. Now, if you had to talk about Conor McGregor, I don't think he's coming back 2025. I don't see where he makes that turnaround and gets back into the mix of things in 2025. I think he needs a little bit of time. I think, he needs a little bit of time to get back into training, get into conditioning, and then maybe 2026 come back around. So I don't think Chandler should wait for that fight. I honestly do think Chandler's, moved on from that. But I don't see Conor McGregor come back 2025. If he does, I'd like to see something like a Conor McGregor. If he does come back, I'd like to see something like Conor McGregor versus Nick Diaz, or Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. I think that'd be a great fight for 2025, but I don't see him chipping away at anyone in the top 15 of the UFC division. For Conor McGregor of 2025, I do not see him coming back for the a title contention bout or a title contender bout. So Nate Diaz, I think that's game. Moving on to Michael Chandler, same thing with him. He's in a weird position where he's lost a considerable amount of bouts, a considerable amount of title bouts, and not only fights in the top 5, to where he kind of has to take a step back and see, who do I fight to make my way up again? So for Michael Chandler, I think the biggest thing for him in 2025 is stay active, get into those exciting fights, and put on exciting fights that we know that you can put on. Because when Chandler fights, it's an exciting fight. There's no doubt about it. You see Chandler in there, you're going to get a gruesome fight, exciting fight, a high-paced fight. And you don't see that as much in the lightweight division, right? I mean, you do get some high-paced fights where, they're slugging it out, but with Michael Chandler, it's a given. If he's in it, they're going to town. So that's my thing for Michael Chandler. Stay active in 2025, get 3 fights, even if that means being the quote-unquote gatekeeper. I think 2025, hey, be the gatekeeper. It is what it is. I know 2026, you'll get that big fight. That's my thing. Now, with Charles the Bronx, he's in a kind of predicament now with the title contention and title fight. Only because with Arman pulling out now, and then Renato pulling, getting that title fight. Let's say Renato wins. Well, they're gonna get that rematch with Islam. Probably won't be to the middle of the year. Arman's next in line, so essentially Charles' ear is kind of gone now. So I think if anything happens there, I think with Charles, it's like just getting a fight in this year, and with Chandler needing to be active this year, I think we make a Chandler Charles 2. I think that's a great fight. I know we know how it ended last time, and I get that, but I think for both fighters, it's kind of, you don't get to pick and choose right now at this specific time. So hopefully they make something happen for Charles this year. I don't see him fighting for the title this year just because of how this played out. Because if Islam beats Renato, then yeah, Charles could probably jump in the next Abu Dhabi, and he'll probably get that, unless Arman gets better from his back pain. So it depends kind of also on Arman's turnaround time. I don't think they push away the Arman fight, and I think if I had to say, the Arman fight and Islam fight does better in Abu Dhabi anyways. So there is that aspect. So I do think they're going to reserve that for Islam and Arman. So there is that aspect within the lightweight division for that. If we had to jump into the rankings real quick, I think we go, Arman obviously is number 1, Charles 2, Justin Gaethje 3. Haven't heard too much on Gaethje. Haven't heard too much on Poirier on what they're, kind of what they're planning on doing. If I had to say, they're kind of maybe just waiting for an exciting fight, an exciting bout, and that's just up in the air at the moment. Same thing with Max. Coming off loss, it's kind of hard to say where he ends up. Dan Hooker, kind of hard to say. So you got Michael Chandler at 7, and you got Gamrot, Dariush, Fiziev, BSD, Paddy Pimblett, Jalen Turner, and Joel Alvarez. I'd go, a Chandler, a Paddy Pimblett, something like that is perfect. Something like that would work. Or Michael Chandler, BSD. BSD has taken some L's, so there's that aspect of who does he really want to fight? Does he just want to fight somebody unranked to kind of get his mojo back? Because he is still a great fighter, just hasn't worked out. So there's things there with the lightweight division. If you really had to say, there is a mix of fighters, but there's no one really kind of gaining that momentum needed to just skyrocket into a title contention bout. Just because you got, Islam has beat Charles, so I don't know if folks want to see that again. So it's kind of, there's a little bit of that. So right now it's just kind of a mix of maybe another 2 bouts for, so you got this bout for the lightweight belt, and then maybe you just get 2 more, and then if that, you might just get 1 more for 2025. So that's kind of the downside of the lightweight division, where there's not like, let's say 2 or 3 guys gaining momentum, as in where like the middleweight you have, in the welterweight where you have Shavkat and Ian Gary, kind of gaining steam and propelling themselves up to a title bout. So you have that aspect, and we'll see how that turns around. See if there's some guys that propel themselves up. See if Max, I'd like to see some sort of Max Poirier fight would be nice. Maybe get Max going up there. So For the lightweight, there's it's moving along. I just think a little bit slower than we'd like. I know I definitely would like it to gain some steam, get some guys, some young guys. But it is what it is. We'll see how it goes for the rest of the year. But Islam Renato, I have to go with Renato Moicano as the winner. I do think he becomes champion tonight, just from what I've been seeing, hearing. Sure, I don't want to count out Islam Makhachev. Islam is a different breed, a different fighter, a fighter that you can't ever count out. I'm not saying that I don't think Islam can win. I think that's a very good chance, right? The odds are in his favor, but I have been following Renato, and not only would I like him to win, not only do I think it would be really nice to see him be a champion, I do think he has it in him. I think he's motivated. I think he's primed and ready. I think conditionally, physically, and technically, he has what it takes to be champion. And now it's just a matter of today. Hey, how does he wake up today? How does he perform today? I know a big thing with Renato was not being able to stuff the takedown, not being able to defend a takedown. And that just comes with, kind of learning, and hopefully he's learned that from his RDA fight. Hopefully, he practiced that, and hopefully he got better. It's hard to say whether he did or didn't, and it's hard to believe if he did or didn't within that time, but we got to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I think he pulls it off. And with that would conclude the UFC 311 card. I think those are my fight forecast for now. I probably will, after these fights unfold, I will do a fight recap and trying to figure out, kind of what we go on from now, and kind of dive in a little bit deeper on who I think can fight who, based off of their activity, based off of their technical ability, and based off of scheduling. Scheduling is a big deal here in the UFC, and I think for those guys, it's just, can we get them at the time that we need them? And if we can, great. And if we cannot, then how do we supplement that with a different division, or a different fight, or a different ranking to make up in the future? So I think that's what's really exciting about the UFC. In particular, the ranking system is just, I know a lot of people talk mess about it, but I really enjoy it. I really think it speaks volume on how deep the division is, or how exciting the fights are going to be this year. And I, unfortunately, for the lightweight division, I don't see it that way. I don't see it being one of the most exciting divisions. I think bantamweight is one of those most exciting divisions this year. If I had one of them, right? Heavyweight, I think, is at the very bottom. There's just no motion there. So we'll just have to see how it unfolds. I'm curious to see it after this card, and then we'll, obviously reconvene and talk again about what had happened. But again, this is the first card of the year, so this is exciting. We're starting from the very beginning. Yeah, that's all I got for now. Till next time.